The struggle for supremacy is nothing to man, and in the history of Nigeria, there has been such tussle, with different parties trying to show their superiority. One of such tussle was what led to the deposing and unceremonious destooling of Oba Adeyemi II. In the pre-colonial times, the Oyo Empire was headed by the Alafins, in a monarchical system where the only functional check of his usage of power was the Oyo Mesi Council. The coming of the colonialists changed it to a form of indirect rule, where the Britons rule via the instituted system. However, this system was again tampered with after the exit of the colonialists, following a clash of powers between Oba Adeyemi II and Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Oba Adeyemi, who succeeded his father, Oba Adeyemi I, ascended the stool in 1945 and reigned for about a decade before his abrupt and unexpected dethronement in July 1955. When in 1950, Obafemi Awolowo established the Action Group Party, promising freedom from the British rule and want for all those who followed him, particularly the Westerners. The Alafin was one of the few highly placed men of the Yoruba extraction who did not go along with him. The Oba did not in any way hide the fact that he was a fan of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe and by extension, the National Council of Nigeria and Cameroons. This was the beginning of the rift between Awolowo, who was the national president of the newly formed party, which was thought to project the interests of the Westerners, and the Alafin, who was the undisputed supreme ruler of the Yoruba race. Based on the regional ties, the Northern People's Congress, dominated by the North, the National Council of Nigerians and Cameroons, dominated by the East, while the Action Group Party had the West as their home zone. This means that the Oba's support for the NCNC, a rival party, gave them an edge over the AG, which was supposed to dominate the West. This was of course something Awolowo would not tolerate, as it was not just an affluent of his person, but threatened the base of Action Group, his political brainchild. When the Egbe Omo Yoruba Association was formed by some prominent Yoruba sons in 1953, the Alafin was named Grand Patron. This threat became magnified. With double position, Oba Adeyemi personally campaigned for the NCNC during the local government elections in 1954. Furious over the attitude of the Alafin, which was not in any way favoring the regional government, the Awolowo-led government started dishing out policies which one might tempted to refer as the anti-Alafin. The policies were majorly targeted to undermine the authorities of the traditional rulers in general and the Alafin in particular, and transfer more powers to the regional government. First of all, Oyo Native Authority, which was headed by Both Thomas, cut off a major source of fund by replacing the traditional judges, also known as the Iwefa chiefs, with their new and elite appointees. The senior chiefs, as a result, had to hustle for whatever they wanted to come to them, as the new arrangement did not take them into consideration. This, of course, also meant that the Oba was no longer paramount in any way, except in the minds of his loyalties. The Action Group further tightened the knots by reforming the tax collection system, so that the collection and assessment, which was until then done by the Alafin, was now handled directly by the government, in addition to a 10 shilling tax and 4 shilling education rate. All of this provoked the Alafin to state that a close examination of the party's policies had led him to withdraw his earlier support and method. After this, he declined the invitation of Sakofo Adeyemi, the secretary of Egbe Omo Oduduwa, and gave his full support to the opposition NCNC at all levels. The Oba immediately put actions into his words by setting up his own private courts within the palace and in the residence of his chiefs, which rendered the government's native court reform redundant, as the people preferred to meet with their Oba to resolve disputes, especially marital issues, rather than visit the court, which they saw as an elite thing. He also passed a resolution against the education and capitation taxes and told the people not to cooperate with the government. In a counter-attack, the regional government set about intimidating supporters of the Oba. When the Oyo Native Authorities was formed, the councillors, who took the side of the government against the Oba, were reportedly attacked, and all fingers, especially those of both Thomas, pointed at the Crown Prince as being responsible for the assault. This same council eventually reduced the annual salary of the Alafin by £650, removing the salary of the prince and other palace nobles. They did not stop at this, but went ahead to distill the Oba and banish his son, who was tagged as being a threat to public order. At this point, it was clear that it was not just a minor clash of titans, but a major head-on coalition between the two powerful figures. It also appeared to be a contest between the educated minority elites of the land and the majority illiterate and devoted traditionalists, chiefs and rulers. Awolowo kept advocating a reform system administration, an overhaul of the constitution, a system where the traditional rulers would be stripped of their already streamlined powers and same would be shifted to the educated few. The already delicate power balance was tipped further when a fight broke out between Bod Thomas and the Alafin over issues of supremacy in the action group controlled Oyo Divisional Council. This was worsened by the death of Bod Thomas at the prime age of 34 in November 1953, a death which the Oba was accused of having perpetrated through diabolical means. It was so terrible that when the members of the action group launched a violent attack on the opposition camp, they reacted immediately and stormed the party meeting in Oyo, an action which led to the death of about 6 action group loyalists. Throughout the rest of 1954, there were further clashes and counter-clashes, resulted in injury of many and destruction of properties worth thousands of pounds. When in September of the same year, an emergency committee composed of 7 Yoruba rulers, including the Alafin, the Oni of Ife, and the Aleke of Egbaland, as well as 14 leaders of the Egba Omo Oduduwa, was convened. The Alafin was accused of conspiring to work against the regional government and the party in power. Awolowo then stated that the government had outrun their patience and could no longer tolerate his insubordination, and after consultation with other Obas, the 84-year-old Alafin was dethroned and banished from Oyo. His banishment led the Oba to relocate to Lagos, where he was housed by a wealthy NCNC stalwart. After taking the Oba out of the way, Awolowo proceeded to pass into law 3 crucial policies, giving him as the regional head tight control over the local government, the customary court, and matters of land and chieftaincy. The action group had the traditional rulers under their firm grip, but the chiefs decided to make their relation more mutual by dishing out 100 chieftaincy titles to the politicians. This was how Obafemi Awolowo became Chief Obafemi Awolowo. By November 1970, the son of the banished Oba ascended the throne as Adeyemi III, to the delight of the Oyo indigenes.